Say what? A 16-bit CPU? A 10-bit ROM? What kind of craziness is this? Welcome to the world's first 16-bit video game console. This little guy right here. But first, let's do this. Hey, it's package day today. 2 boxes. Let's go find out what we got. Hey, so welcome to the world of the 16-bit video game console. And I hope you enjoyed that little bit of fun intro to get started with the Intellivision. So, as much as I'd like to tell you that our adventure starts here, okay, and with this mound of stuff that you watched me unbox, including the original console, these two, I can't say that it does. Okay, because what I initially did was I happened to get this little guy here. And this guy here, let me show you really up close, is filthy, and the controllers are in really poor shape. And this is where my adventure began, okay? Because when you purchase one of these and you buy it off eBay with a notice that it is untested, that's almost a, that's a little kitty back there helping. It's almost an invitation to say, guess what? I don't work. So what I wanted to do was dig into this and find out what was going on. And to my surprise, I learned a lot about the Intellivision. So let's go ahead and do a little technical overview before we get started. All right, so before we dig into the super technical details of the Intellivision, let's have a little fun and compare it to everybody's favorite game system, the Atari 2600. All right, so here's the big thing. The Atari was launched in 1977, and once everybody seen how well the Atari was doing in the market, they wanted a piece of that pie. So the Intellivision was launched by Mattel Electronics in 1979, and they actually contracted out to have this done. And amazingly enough, it had 16-bit architecture, and I'll show you the CPU and all that at the end. But it really was an advanced system, and I don't know how much they played on that or how much users cared at the time. They were more interested in the games involved. So now one of the things I said was that the Intellivision is a 16-bit CPU, and they used the company is called General Instruments, and they used the 1610 CPU, which is 16-bit, and the Atari at the time was using the 6500 series from MOS Technology. In this case, they used the 6507. Now, the 6502 is used in some of your favorite computers out there, including the Apple II, the Commodore series computers, and the Atari 8-bit themselves, and some other lesser-known ones. Now, the Atari had a speed advantage. They ran a little bit faster than the Intellivision one, but there's also a reason why the Intellivision one even ran a bit slower than that. Now, one of the things that was different too was the amount of memory available on each video game system. Now, like I said, not a big user thing, but a big programmer thing. The Atari had 128 bytes of basically like scratch RAM, or to display the screen or whatever, and the Intellivision had over 1K. So and it was divided out, and like I said, I'll show you that in a little bit. So there was a memory advantage, which made it better for programmers at the time. So the video was different too. When they were designing the Intellivision, they were taking a look at what the Atari was doing at the time, and they knew they wanted better graphics. So one of the things about it is it has a dedicated graphics processor, the stick chip, standard television interface controller, I think, and then the TIA was in the Atari 2600, the television interface adapter. The 2600 basically had 5 hardware sprites and had no screen hardware scrolling. And they were very limited sprites. The Intellivision had a little better sprites. It had 8 hardware sprites with collision detection and some other features because it had the dedicated graphics processor. They also had hardware scrolling support, which was really cool. The Atari needed a lot more CPU interaction to drive the display on the screen. The Intellivision didn't, because it had that dedicated controller, 16 simultaneous colors on the Intellivision. Now I say 2 to 4 colors on the Atari, but that's really not true. You could do, I think it was something like 128 different colors on the Atari, but it took a lot of advanced programming, and it took a lot of work for a programmer to do that. So they really needed to know what they were doing to put sprites and colors on the screen. They also introduced better sound chip. The Atari had 2 channels plus noise. The Intellivision had the AY3-8914 sound chip with 3 tone channels plus noise generator. They also added the IntelliVoice for speech synthesis. The Atari did not. And you're going to come find out later they actually added a second sound chip to the Intellivision, and we'll talk about that in an upcoming episode. So the Intellivision did have better audio capabilities. Oh, the controllers, eh? If you've ever seen an Intellivision controller, there on your left, it's got a little keypad on it. It's got that damn disc and buttons on the sides. And I do say damn disc. I've never been a fan of the Intellivision controller. Give me a good old Atari joystick any day. Stick, button, you can do a lot with that, actually. But you know what? Some players might find the Intellivision controller better. It used to have, or it does have, slides that go in there to overlay the keypad to help with different controls that you can do. Again, we'll take a look at that later on. So what did all this mean here? The Intellivision was a better console. Was nice. It had its shortcomings, and it had some better stuff. Yet the Atari's simplicity, and wow, they just hit it right, didn't they? They sold over 30 million units. The Intellivision did roughly 3.75 million units in its lifetime. So not always the technically superior unit wins, does it? It's all in the games, isn't it? Atari had a lot of arcade games. They had a lot of support. They had a lot of garbage too. The Intellivision didn't. It didn't have a lot of the arcade ports. Even though it had nicer graphics and more in-depth games, you know, it's not really what the gamers and players were looking for at the time. So that's really a different, you know, it's what helps drive sales is the games that were involved for the unit. So what is this fun legacy left behind? Well, the Atari definitely dominated the home market and inspired a lot of others, a lot of those to try to take on Atari. Intellivision, and who knew, I didn't know until I started digging into this, that Intellivision was the first 16-bit game console. They established a lot of standards too for different things, and they really did have a beautiful console design at the time. So Atari was the market leader, and Intellivision was a technical innovator. So let's go ahead and take a look at the schematic. All right, so cue up the boring music. Here it is. This is the just kind of a block diagram of this of the Intellivision itself and the CPU here from General Instruments, and you'll notice that they used a 16-bit data bus. Now you're going to say, "Oh, Rob, it only goes to D3 here." D2 is under me. And they're a little bit out of order. D0 and D1 are right here. So there's a little bit of shuffling around here. This is a multiplexed address data bus, which means that it actually has a 16-bit address they use here too. At one cycle, they give you an address. The next cycle, they give you data, etc., etc. That's how it works. There's a 16-bit system RAM here. Now, one of the things I had mentioned at the beginning of this video, which is kind of fun, is the 10-bit ROMs. All right, Intellivision cartridges actually use a 10-bit ROM. So data 0 through data 9, 10 bits. Why do they do this? Because even though it's 16-bit, because what's called opcodes or operation codes, it's what the CPU actually executes in assembly language, are only 10 bits wide. So remember, memory is money, and when you're doing these, you want to save money. So the ROMs that are in Intellivision cartridges are only 10 bits wide to being used. So it's just a cost-saving measure. If your instructions are only 10 bits wide, why use 16-bit ROMs? You can, but you're going to throw away those extra 6 bits. So that's why. So here's a quick breakdown of it. They actually used what I thought was pretty cool too. These little executive ROMs here. What they are is they're actually a set of libraries that they built into the Intellivision that programmers could use to do things a lot more quickly and easily, kind of way operating systems are done today. You know, there are a set of libraries, and programs call the set of libraries to get things done. There's Scratch RAM in here. There's Graphics RAM. Right over here you can see. ROM, where they store characters. If you notice, Intellivision games all seem to have a similar look and feel to them. This is why. So, and that's the system. And then this is where you'd plug into the cartridge port. So, and down here, this is kind of where the controllers and the audio is. So that's it. So that's our overview. Let's go ahead and dig back in and take a look at that system I got. All right, so this is the little guy that kind of started it all this time. This was untested from eBay, and we're going to give it a test right now. Now, what's nice is right behind this, I got the other group of systems in. Okay, but this one is my focus. This is what started this. Now, it didn't come with a power supply or anything, but we lucked out and got power supply with the next group. And, well, I don't want to say we lucked out because I wanted that group because it had a power supply. And so this is hooked on our TV here. Let's give her a try. Okay, well, we get nothing, but we got no cartridge in there. So let's go ahead and give a cartridge a try. Just like an Atari, it ain't gonna come up unless it's got a game in it. So okay. And just a black screen. It doesn't seem to be, instead of having a it's got one of these goofy ones, you gotta hold it to turn it off. All right, so nothing there. Let's try another one. Maybe it's just that cartridge. But I'm already thinking that we're not going to have any. All right, well, so this is a bad one. Let's see what a good one should look like, eh? So we're going to put this one aside for right now. Now this one I got in is supposed to be tested. So let's see how this looks. Hey, there we go. Not the best picture in the world, but might have my cable, might be the switch. Might just need a little TLC. So, hey, and there we go. I don't know what the movement is without the overlay. All right, well, the buttons work too. Like I said, not the... A little bit of weirdness there, but the cartridge could be dirty. We'll cut it some slack. So let's see that Space Armada really quick. I hate dealing with that. Let's try another one. This one is Star Strike. Let's try this guy. Yeah, I'm wondering if these need some cleaning. Alright, well, let's go back to our armor battle, which we knew did work. Alright, so let's go with this. So, lots of distortion on the screen though. Like I said, I don't know if it's the cabling or what. But it does work, so we'll go with that. I see the distortion. All right, but this isn't the one I wanted. So this next lot I bought actually came with the two consoles. One that was tested. Okay, so now we know what a good console looks like. And this one claimed it was for parts. So I don't know what parts means. See if it works. And I guess parts means exactly that. So, all right. So we're going to kind of call it quits right there in this episode. And in the next episode, we're going to dig inside to these two consoles and see if we can make another working one. So I hope to see you in the next episode of Classic Microcomputers. Take care.